Pretty dang cool to see this. There's literally like nothing in here. I mean, big old pile of parts on this table. It's the most fun part, weighing all the cool stuff coming out. This is the big boy.
Sorry.
We got 7 pounds there, so 55 plus 7. So 55 plus 7, we're at 62 minus 4 pounds for the dash. Hey, what's up guys, how's it going? So we are back at the lab with Kyle. We're doing a quick update video today on the E92 M3 race car. I think I could call it a race car now with all the stuff that Kyle's been doing to it. You can see on this table behind us here, we've got a huge pile of parts that Kyle just pulled out. So we're gonna weigh all this stuff today. We're gonna talk about all the different things that Kyle's been doing. We got the heater core out, we got the AC out, the stock dash and everything is out of the car. It's pretty insane to see all this. And you know, keep in mind, before we started doing all this car was about 3,000 pounds. So with a half tank of fuel, I had Cantrell Motorsport in Seattle corner balance this thing at 3,000 pounds before we just pulled all this stuff out. So I'm really curious to see what all this stuff weighs. But this is next level stuff, man. It's crazy to see my car in this condition, but it's in good hands. I mean, Kyle's just been killing it. You know, if any of you guys want to build a custom race car from the ground up, man, hit up Kyle, because it just blows my mind, some of the stuff that he's been doing to my car. I'm really stoked. So we're gonna go through all that today and show you guys what he's been up to. Okay, so as you can see, we got all these different parts here. Big old pile of parts on this table. We're gonna weigh everything, but you know, you've got the heater core. What do we got here, Kyle?
So we'll start kind of where we were at the beginning, because we started with the transmission, and one of the parts that was left from that old transmission was the transmission cooling line system. If you go back and watch Nick's previous videos, you remember that we don't need the whole cooling system. So we had removed all the lines, and I had basically capped off what was left of the reservoir that was in front of the passenger side wheel well. So since we had to remove the air conditioning unit, all the associated components with that in the dash, behind the dash, I was able to remove his whole front bumper and some of the structure, his fans, his cooling fans behind the radiator, to remove the radiator, to remove this bad boy.
Big old radiator there.
It's the AC condenser, and then the evaporator would be the one that's in the car, or vice versa.
The little tiny guy there.
Yeah, this is the other AC unit.
Yeah.
The point being is that since I had to take that out, as associated with the air conditioning system, I was able to access this guy and take that out as well. And then we were able to basically start removing more bracketry associated with that, and create new structure inside the wheel wells to reassemble the whole bumper assembly. And then basically adding new hardware where it was needed or not needed to create a holistic assembly again, minus all these parts. That is challenging because of all the structure that these do add. You wouldn't think that some of these things do add structure, but they do. They add rigidity to certain components. So you need to add that back to the car once you remove certain parts. And so that has been kind of a methodical process, but very necessary to get the car not just back to where it was, but stronger than what it was, as lighter than what it was as well.
Yeah, so last time we were here, Kyle had the stock dash out of the car sitting here, but the structure and everything was still in the car. And so basically you've got the metal structure sitting here over on the table. He pulled this out. This metal structure is going back in the car because remember, we're doing the carbon dash. So he actually just recently was able to remove this, basically this like plastic skin that was part of the stock dash, basically glued to it or however it's secured.
So yeah, it's like sonically welded. So they weld the plastic to the plastic. And essentially what you have is this whole assembly that goes inside of this. Just like this. So essentially you have this whole sub-assembly that goes right back here, and they weld all this to the pad up here, which is what you see. And so I was actually able to remove this whole piece without cracking any of it, which is phenomenal, sacrificing obviously the dash.
And you just use like a little chisel and a hammer?
Yeah,
Just
to an
like
extent, yeah.
chiseled that sucker
Very
out of there.
methodically though, because starting on one face, and then moving to the top faces, you know, and then working your way around, because this is actually very brittle, because this is actually really light.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
light.
the point being is that I really like to maintain the structural integrity that they designed into parts just like this. And by maintaining this existing structure, we'll have a carbon dash. Once this is bonded to the carbon, it'll key in just like the original dash.
So you see there's all these different little mounting points on this, but what he's going to do is, so the reason he removed this plastic piece, he's going to mount the carbon dash to this plastic piece, and it's going to be a fully removable, serviceable thing that you can pull out of the car, and using basically this plastic piece that he removed should make your life way easier for getting this all mounted up, right?
Yeah.
Just like that. So then the carbon piece has some nice structure. It's got all the stock mounting points.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And he's going to cut off any excess plastics or any, you know, metal or anything that we don't need to save weight. So basically whatever is necessary will stay. But I think it's a pretty cool way to go about mounting this carbon dash, because this carbon dash comes and, you know, there's no mounting brackets, there's no mounting points or anything like that. So you really got to figure out how you're going to get this thing in the car,
Yeah.
and be secured and not rattling around.
At the same time, removing everything that's behind there.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that a lot of these components here have fastening features, receiving ends of fasteners that you would connect the old dash to, you know, through the vents. And that creates like a holistic assembly that's really strong and rigid. So what I'm trying to do is add that rigidity back to the system, but with as little weight as possible. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty trick, because it's what I say is OEM fitment.
Yeah, so this
For a
was a
completely
really
custom
cool
part.
idea to pull this off and
Yeah.
use this, because otherwise I don't even know how you go about trying to add all those different mounting points.
Yeah, really, what I initially thought I was going to do is cut these individual tabs off and then bond them to their associated places on the carbon dash.
But man,
It
that's
was
hard.
a pipe dream to think that I could get this off in one piece. And if you guys attempt this, you'll see what I'm talking about. Particularly, this area had, you know, I'd say no less than 100 little tack welds of the plastic to the plastic. And
That's
so
crazy. And then you
I
just-
called Nick and I was like, hey man, is it okay if we sacrifice your dash, the padding of the dash, so I can try to extract some of the parts? And he was cool with it. So
yeah,
that was
so we
nice.
just kind of, there's the stock dash there, because we're never going to use the stock dash again. I've never even seen anybody purchasing like dashes. I don't even know how you would install something like that. So anyways, so we're working on the carbon fiber dash. I'm going to show you guys inside the car. Huge open space now. So, you know, you had the heater core there, you had the AC, what was that on the right-hand side? The AC condenser, or what are they?
So there's an evaporator,
Okay.
the AC evaporator, and there's also the huge filter. Basically, there's a lot of condensation that gets created in the unit, and that condensation that basically, it's sort of dripping water, is actually this whole side of the unit here. This whole big piece is basically, it gets rid of a lot of that extra moisture that would just be, you know, sometimes in classic cars you just pipe it to the outside because it's just water and you need to get it outside of the car, but they don't do that here. So, but this whole piece is one assembly, which is just wild.
So you got the AC, you got the heater core, you've got all the different vents and components and mounting brackets and hoses and fasteners and everything sitting on this table.
And just, this is the harness and the motors. These are all the individual motors. It's cool because they're all the exact same part, and all of those motors turn all of your vents, and they open them and close them, and how they're all integrated into each other.
This sucker's heavy though. I mean, just that right there is like 5 pounds.
It's wild. No, 2.5 pounds.
2.5.
2.5 pounds.
Still though,
It's
still.
wild.
I'm a strong guy. I lift a lot of weight, so I kind of, you know.
But
we'll-
yeah, it's
we'll wait on
wild
that.
that just the wiring and the motors. This isn't even the unit. This
Yeah.
is just the things attached to the side.
Just crazy, man. So pulling all these hoses and stuff out. I mean, like Kyle has been, you know, deep into this car. Really, really, really crazy. I'm just going to show you guys some of the holes that he's filled real quick with carbon fiber. So lots of different holes here. We got that filled. We got that filled. We've got the firewall sealed up here with some carbon fiber. That's where the steering column goes back in, that hole right there. But that metal...
Got ones in the floor under the
yeah,
seats.
got some in the floor here.
Both sides, you got those plugged in.
Both sides there. But then it's that metal cage structure that you see over on the table, that's going back in.
Right across the front face, and it marries up with this.
Yep.
So it'll be so awesome though, because all this void space and all the wiring that I've been removing, none of it goes back in. So the cleanliness of all of this will remain. And so that's why it behooves me to take care of every wire that's in there, put it back where it's supposed to be, keep the bracketry that holds the existing wires, what's going to be reused, because at the end of the day, even when the carbon dash is in there, that's all going to be open. And so it's super important to have some foresight to think about that. And the fact that it will be super clean and things won't be rattling around that shouldn't be in there will be really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's looking pretty clean.
And then over here, if we look back here, we can see where the old AC lines. So the old AC lines and the old Freon hoses went right through this firewall, and I was actually able to remove the gasket and modify it and insert the carbon into that gasket. So now we have a weather-tight seal, which where it would have been a huge void in the car that would have needed to be welded up or something. So that's pretty trick. And that also enabled me to work on our system, our return line system for what was the heater core. Now it just returns into itself. So that's pretty cool. And then taking it to another level, because this car deserves it, Nick deserves it. I always think it's so silly. I'll give Nick a picture, but these torsion bars are they're raw aluminum, unfinished parts. And to have an engine bay to this level that Nick's already taken it to, and to have that part next to such a beautiful carbon part, I was always like, man, it's too bad those weren't finished. So I do a lot of hand polishing, and these are basically, I sanded them down with a fine grit and then hand polished those, so they're mirror finished
meditation
now.
for you.
Yeah, for sure it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very therapeutic.
It's pretty cool. That's just Kyle going above and beyond, polishing the metals in the engine bay.
Yeah, and then like adding hardware to his aftermarket vents, the Berger Motorsports vents, and then making sure that the attachment points aren't hindering these vents, because this actually lets, it filters the air from the engine bay directly right behind the dash into his cockpit. So it's important that these do work properly as well, and that they're all sealed off. And then coming over to the passenger side, we did a lot of work on this side of the engine, because you can remember that we were removing the transmission cooling lines that went into the front of the passenger side wheel well.
Down in here.
But all those lines chased along this side of the frame. And now we have, I think, 4 or 5 different lines that have been removed from that side of the car, because we had the AC lines, we had the heater core lines, and as we remove more and more, it enables us to kind of clean up this whole area. So that's pretty exciting to see.
Dude, I can't even imagine trying to remove all those hard lines from here.
From there to there.
How do you even do
and
that?
Through the back.
How do you even do that?
It's just
Just
awesome. It's just awesome.
Oh my gosh.
And trying to keep as much of this assembled.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to polishing the torsion bars, because I had to remove them so many times to get the hoses out and whatnot. And the final time I was like, man, these deserve it. It's time.
So what was left here for the AC? That's the AC compressor right there?
Exactly.
So that's the compressor. How did we do this so we were able to remove most of the AC system?
So what we're doing here is, instead of removing the whole AC compressor, which is the unit in here that has basically the pulley systems attached to it. That wheel spins, and essentially there's a clutch in there that engages and disengages according to the temperature of the gas that's in the Freon in the system. So engaging and disengaging that clutch is essentially what makes this wheel spin and not spin. What we're doing is we're trying to maintain the integrity of the existing serpentine system. By keeping that unit on there, we're able to maintain the exact amount of revs, and we're not straining it any more or less. We're keeping that system the exact same. The caveat is that we had two open-ended hoses basically that came out of the Firewall. Essentially what we did is we are recirculating the system back into itself directly from the compressor. So if you were to look at the left side, this would be your liquid side, and that essentially would be sending it out into that part we just showed you behind the dash, and it would return back into the system. Essentially what we've done is connect those two to each other and done it in the short amounts of hose possible. And by doing that, the system will run in the same way. The system's already been disengaged because the electronics aren't hooked up anymore. And so the theory is that with the liquid that's left inside of there, it'll self-lubricate, prevent it from freezing up through the regular wear and tear of the engine, and it'll essentially just be a circulating system, and without removing the actual compressor itself.
Yeah, so we didn't have to mess with the power steering system or anything. I'm sure a lot of you guys know that if you do remove the AC system, you have to figure out what you're going to do with the power steering unit and the belts. There's a few different solutions out there. But we decided that, you know, Kyle thinks this is going to be a good solution. This is going to work. We didn't have to mess with any of the power steering. You know, maybe something in the future that we do is we do like an electronic power steering system, and then we're able to remove this whole assembly. But for now, I think this is a really good idea, and so we think that it's going to work pretty well. Do you want to talk about removing the Freon?
Well, I did have to make my own Freon removal kit. It's important that if you are removing the Freon in your car that you don't let it into the atmosphere. Even if you're doing it by yourself in your own shop at home, it behooves you to not put that into the atmosphere. It's extremely toxic and it's an acidic chemical. So if it comes in contact with your hands, you'll tattoo yourself with a burn. And I just would not suggest that. I've had enough experience and just knowledge of the way that the existing really expensive kits are that extract Freon and they hold them in tanks. And so essentially what I did is I built my own system with my own tank, and I have a vacuum and everything, a vacuum specifically for the Freon. So I built my own kit with the individual components. I'm not going to tell you what those are because you need to be able to do that research on your own and come up with your own safe way to do it. The best way to do this if you don't have a kit is to be able to take your car to a shop. Basically, I would suggest a body shop because body shops have to take out the Freon from vehicles if they're going to remove the whole front assembly and everything. So you could take it to a body shop, they could take out the Freon and extract it and be able to weigh it, especially if you're going to reuse it. You want to be able to weigh the amount of Freon that's removed from the system so that you put in the exact same weight, which equates to the same pressure in the system in the end. The fact that we're not reusing the system, I didn't have to know the exact amount of liquid that came out. I just had to watch the pressure go down to zero. And so through the kit that I made, I was able to watch the high pressure go all the way down to zero, at which point I was able to disengage the system, and I knew that it had no pressure in it. Then I could start taking all this apart. It added a lot of process to this, but it was very necessary to not skip the step of just putting a screwdriver in that fitting and letting it all just go in the air, because that is not, it depletes the ozone like pretty quick, so it behooves you not to do that. Don't do it.
But yeah, you know, otherwise we would have had to, I mean, this car is not running right now, right? Yeah. So otherwise we would have had to
push it onto your trailer,
push it onto the trailer it to somewhere that could discharge the Freon. So Kyle said, we're not doing that. I'm just going to make my own kit. So he made his own kit and he discharged the Freon, and this is where we're at, which is pretty dang cool.
And so the next steps are kind of what we talked about the first part of the video, is that I'm going to start bonding that structure to the carbon. I've started to make templates from the existing dash for, you know, this is for the steering, or sorry, the mounting assembly that basically held his key fob and his push start ignition. So we're going to add some of this substructure behind there so it'll click in and click out just like the stock OEM part did when I took it out the first time without all the extra weight. So laying these things out, getting that ready, getting ready to cut out the hole for his display, which we actually talked about modifying his display, which would be kind of cool.
Display over here. So, you know, he might modify this, remove this housing, and then make his own, you know, what little plexiglass inserts here, covers here. Not 100% sure on that one yet. It just depends on how well this thing fits into the carbon dash. So that remains to be seen. What else? Oh, we got our custom drive shaft.
Oh yeah.
Back from Drivelines Northwest.
This is trick.
Drivelines Northwest did our custom drive shaft based on Kyle's specs.
Yeah, so this is super trick because I'll grab the other drive shaft here really quick. And I'll show you why this is so much better. So at quick glance, these might be like really similar parts. You might think that like, oh wow, those are the same. But just look at the difference between this union here. This union is non-serviceable. So this rotating assembly, this knuckle here, you cannot take out. You would need to replace your drive shaft. Since Nick's car is a full-on race car now, we asked that this be a fully serviceable part. So now you could take out the C-clips on both sides, get a new knuckle and put that in. And essentially we'd be right back to where we started with a brand new one. All of these parts are serviceable now. And the fact that we were able to even choose, like you could see how much more burly this part is because I told him, you know, what engine's in there and what we're gonna be doing, the type of racing that we're gonna be doing. And he was able to, at Drivelines Northwest, Patrick, awesome guy, was able to basically get one that's rated for 800 horsepower. And that is so great.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Because we're doing preventive maintenance basically. And we're making sure that Nick can get on this because we know the transmission is gonna handle it. And we're just trying to prevent wear from happening where it doesn't need to happen. And the fact that we were able to also, in addition to making this whole thing serviceable, on the right side, you can see that now we have our 2 inches added where we didn't have 2 inches before, and we don't have to add any spacer. So this distance here is super critical because now it's gonna make properly with our transmission that we already have in the car. And there's spacers that you can get to do the same thing. However, this will be the proper transfer of load at the right angle with no extra spacer involved, which means we don't have to have longer hardware. We get to use the original hardware.
Yeah, and for those of you guys that didn't watch the last video, we had to do this custom drive shaft because when you do a sequential, your stock drive shaft is not going to be long enough or it's going to be too long, but basically it's going to need to be altered in some way. So we ended up going with the custom option because we've got a really good local company called Drivelines Northwest. Kyle's got a good relationship with him, so Kyle took all the measurements, he stopped by, he talked to the guys, told them exactly what we needed, and so this is what we got.
Yeah.
Pretty dang cool.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
I am curious what this drive shaft weighs versus the stock one, so we'll get a weight on them and take a look at that too. But yeah, that's basically pretty much everything. We're going to go ahead and we're going to weigh all these components, but that is about it. We are trucking along here. It is coming together. So pretty crazy, man. This car just kind of blows my mind to see the state that this car is in because before doing all this car was crazy. I mean, you guys know this thing was 3,000 pounds. It was an absolute beast. It was a ripper.
Yeah.
So, you know, now we got the sequential. We got all this weight coming out. It's pretty dang cool. And I just got to give a big shout out to Kyle, man. Thank you so much for just working so hard on this car. I mean, he's just above and beyond solving issues since day one. And it's pretty dang cool, man. Kyle is like a little hidden gem here in Union when it comes to building race cars.
Yeah, so at Union Speed Lab on Instagram, just check it out. But main thing is that I just want you guys to be inspired by the work, and not just the work, but what the work does. When you guys see this car on the track, you'll know what it does. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Is it what it does, not what we say we do. So just realize that, and I hope you guys are witnessing the amount of work that this takes and the trust that Nick has in me. I know that in the end, this is going to be absolutely incredible and worth every penny that's spent. because at the end of the day, I just want to inspire you guys and help you guys have the knowledge to do, if not do this yourself, to come here so I can help you learn something just like Nick's been learning too.
But yeah, this is an epic build, and I couldn't have gotten to this point without Kyle. So
awesome.
anyways, man, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
So 3.5 pounds.
So that little pile's 3.5.
Four, so 5.
So we got 8.5 total pounds right here. Do you want to write that down?
In a second. Just remember 8.5, okay?
Okay.
So that's 4. So 8.5 plus 4.
12.5. See ya, don't need that. Three. 15.5. It's the most fun part, weighing all the cool stuff coming out. Oh, don't want to forget that little bracket right there.
So yeah, 4 again.
What is this? This is like all the little vents and stuff, right?
So that's the actual heater core.
Oh, that's the heater core itself. It's
Yeah,
4 pounds.
so that's the side B of the heater core, I'm calling it. So that plus this.
This is the big boy.
It's fucking bizarre.
Try to hold that centered on your body when you get on that scale too.
13 pounds is what I had before. So 199. 14 pounds. So because there's this extra piece in here.
So that's 14.
Fucking wild.
Yeah, we're gonna compare the stock drive shaft to our custom drive shaft.
23.
So the stock drive shaft, 23 pounds. They should be pretty similar, I would think.
Yeah, well, I mean, this one's actually longer, but I think you can see that tubing is a lot different. 27.
Okay, so our custom drive shaft is 27 pounds.
Keep in mind though, that he built this according to like our horsepower and our drive specs. So like this tubing here is stronger than this tubing.
Yeah.
And you can see that they actually add these flares and such to it, just makes it stronger. He just uses thicker sidewall steel to do that. So if this was an aluminum drive line, this would be about twice the size in diameter with a thinner wall of aluminum. But for our particular application, and there are clearance issues when you start to go with a bigger diameter, especially underneath this car, but this is absolutely the best way to go for this exact application.
So the custom drive shaft is 4 pounds heavier than stock at 27 versus 23. Do you want to weigh this again? Forgot.
I have that.
You
I
have
have
all
all
that?
that. I went back to our video. So the dash plus the structure is 19 pounds. 19 plus 14 plus 4 plus 15.5. I said that I took out 50 pounds. It's 52.5 pounds.
Nice.
It's fucking wild.
That's right on, dude.
And that does not include, I think it's about 2.5 pounds of liquid.
Okay.
I
So
think
we'll call
it's
it
about
55.
2.5 pounds. Yeah, 55 pounds.
So we'll call it 55 total pounds was just pulled out. We're not thinking about the drive shafts, right? We're not
No.
talking about those.
No.
Just from
That's
just from the
this.
dash, the heater, the AC, all the lines,
Yeah.
everything like that. 55 total pounds, and that's with us going with a carbon dash. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Which is 2.5, 3 pounds. I think it was 3 pounds.
The dash
Might have
itself,
been 4.
yeah.
Yeah, it might have been 4.
So
we're still
55
50.
minus, we're right on 50 pounds, let's
Yeah.
say. There is maybe a little bit of metal structure here that Kyle is going to cut
Yeah.
out. So there might be a
Yeah.
couple pounds sitting here. I wouldn't say more than
Less than 5.
less than 5 for sure.
Yeah.
So kind of, but we'll say
That's wild.
we'll say 50 pounds was just pulled out of the front by doing all of this stuff, carbon dash plus removing this huge pile of parts for the heater core and the AC system and all the lines and everything like that is a lot of work, right? I mean, it was a lot of friggin' work getting this out.
One of the hardest things was getting the AC system out. And I know it looks so simple sealing that little void with the carbon to the right of the steering column. But I didn't take out Nick's whole intake manifold or anything. So all that work was actually done through the steering column hole behind there. That was extremely complex, and just not wasting the extra effort to remove so many more systems. And then you'll find out that once you remove this condensing unit, this
we didn't weigh that. We didn't weigh those.
Oh, no, we didn't.
So hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on here, guys. We forgot to weigh that. I don't want to miss that.
Hell yeah. It's wild. We already got to 50 pounds, so I was all excited. This is even more liquid. So that's another 3 pounds of liquid, because each one of these holds quite a bit of liquid.
Yeah.
And the transmission fluid's heavier than this fluid. 7 pounds.
So we got 7 pounds there. So 55 plus 7. So 55 plus 7, we're at 62 minus 4 pounds for the dash.
Plus more liquid.
About 62 pounds right there.
So that's the condenser, AC condenser.
So I'm comfortable saying 60 because you're going to remove some of this metal, which will probably
Yeah.
equate to like 2 or 3 pounds.
Yeah.
So we're 62 minus the 4 pound carbon dash, 58, you know, and then plus maybe a couple pounds for this metal that he's going to remove from this structure here. So we're at a net loss of 60 total pounds
That's wild.
on the front
dude.
of the car from doing that.
That's so awesome.
And then, you know, you got a couple pounds of the drive shaft, rotating weight, so, you know, whatever you want to equate that to. But yeah, 60 pounds out from the front of the car, which is the hardest place to remove weight. So pretty dang cool. Kind of mind-blowing, actually.
Yeah, I
didn't even
know.
know there was 60 pounds in here to pull out. Tux, you having fun? Tux wore his USL colored sweater today to hang out with us. Yeah, you having a good time, buddy.
Man, that's crazy, dude. That's more than I thought. That's phenomenal.
All right, guys, so that is it. That is the update. That's where we're at so far. Thank you very much for watching. I think next time that we do another update video, we'll probably have that carbon dash installed.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot of the components in it too, so that'll be sweet
Yeah,
to
so it'll
see.
be cool
I'm
once-
excited for that.
Cutting all that stuff in there, making it look really nice.
Yeah.
So keep following along, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. This is a pretty epic build. It's pretty crazy. I'm just kind of like blown away by the state of this car now, and it truly is becoming a race car. Thanks to Kyle. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
For sure. Hey, you got it, dude.
All right, guys, take care. See
ya.
you.